Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Jay Haynes, who's the founder of Thrv, a product roadmap software. Jay, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
I am looking forward to talking with you because I personally am not an engineer, but I love structure and I love checklist and blueprint and, anything that you can say, here's how to do something, just follow these steps. Or, I love the concept of a product roadmap. That kind of tells me, well, you start here and then you go there and then you go there. So I'm excited to talk to you about what you guys do, but give us a little bit of background before we get going on your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, sure. We've been in business for about 8 years now, and what we do is provide software that helps product teams innovate more successfully. And our software is based on a method known as jobs to be done, which your listeners may have heard of. Clay Christensen from Harvard Business School was a big promoter of this. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, but he helped pioneer this. And the idea is that customers are actually not buying products. What they're doing is hiring them to get a job done. And that seems like a relatively straightforward thing. They're using products to achieve a goal, in other words, and that goal has become known as jobs to be done. So what we do is help companies use this method and this concept to build better product roadmaps. And product roadmaps really are the key to your company's success. Either you're going to have a roadmap that looks like BlackBerry, or you're going to have a roadmap that looks like the iPhone. And which one are you on? That's what our software really helps you do, is figure out if you're on the right path going towards success, meaning accelerated revenue and profitability growth. So we can get into the details of the method, but that's an overview of what we do.
I had never heard of Clay Christensen before. So as you were saying that, I'm like, okay, there's this guy that, you kind of talk about. And but then when you said people don't really, have a need for this solution, they have a need to hire this to solve this thing. It kind of made me think of two things. Number one is the old adage about, people don't really need a drill. They need a hole to hang this or to do that. So they need the drill as the tool. But then when you said hiring, I'm like, ooh, that reminds me of this. I teach marketing for several universities. And so in discussions, this concept has come up of fulfilling customers' needs. And I remember this video that I always use whenever this comes up. I'll keep this Word document and I'll type in hiring a milkshake. And so as you were saying that, I Googled it to make this comment, and then, that's Clay Christensen.
Yeah.
And you've heard his hiring a milkshake analogy, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's a very famous jobs to be done case, which is really interesting. Why are people hiring a milkshake? What are they trying to do with their milkshake? And that revealed some really interesting stuff, which is I think it was about 40% of milkshakes were bought before 10 a.m., which seems like a strange thing.
Right.
But if you investigate that, people are, trying to use the milkshake to make their commute less dull, to have something that lasts for the whole commute.
Yeah, exactly. And I never related that to job. I've never heard of jobs to be done, So I think it's really curious that it kind of comes full circle. But the point is, you're not selling this widget. You're selling what the widget can do and what problem that it solves. So if that's the case, now let's work backwards and take the old Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind, and go, well, if that's what everybody wants, well, then we need to do this to achieve that. And then the step right before that is this one. So in reality, you're kind of, using sequential thinking or delivering on the problem that people are experiencing to deliver that solution, but you're doing it in kind of like a sequential, jobs to be done. And if this is the job to be done, then how to do it more efficiently.
That's right. And there's some better examples even than the milkshake one to explain this. One of my favorites is in the music markets. So, Microsoft very large company, of course, said, well, we're going to compete in the iPod market because Apple had sold, 200 million iPods at $150 a piece. So logically, that's a $30 billion market, which is, even a large market even for Microsoft. And the reality is there's no such thing as an iPod market. Now the iPod market is $0. So what happened? Why did we all switch to streaming services? And you can go back through history. People used to have records, and then they had cassettes, and then CDs, then iPods, and now streaming services. So the products have changed dramatically in that market. I'm old enough. I owned 8-track cassette tapes. Mm-hmm. And what happened was the products changed, but the job those products are all being hired to do is exactly the same. And of course, that job is to create a mood with music. Humans have been creating a mood with music for forever. You used to need a string quartet to create music, or a harpsichord and then a piano, but then you got recording devices. And the job is exactly the same. And that's what's really powerful for companies and entrepreneurs and product teams, is that when you know that customer's job, you have a stable target to hit. So when Microsoft tried to launch the Zune to compete with the iPod, they were aiming at a moving target because the iPod was going to go away. Like all products, it was going to change into something better. And that better thing, of course, was streaming services. So if you're trying to hit a moving target, it's very, very tough. But the beauty of customer jobs is they never change. They're stable over time. Creating a mood with music 100 years ago is the same as it's going to be 100 years from now. Now, having said that, jobs are very, very complex. And what our software does is help you break down that complexity and identify where the biggest market opportunities actually exist.
It kind of reminds me of the old Wayne Gretzky quote, I skate where the puck is going, because if you focus on and aim it where it is right now, where I'm looking at it, then it's going to pass you up. Well, I wonder, and we don't need to get into this, of course, but I wonder where the next 8-track to streaming service jump will be, right? At some, like for instance, I would say there's a high level of the job that music is doing is, personalized music to create that mood and that emotion. So that's where the Spotify's come in, the Pandora's, here's my channel so maybe we layer in some AI into the stream. Who knows where that could go, but yeah, gone are the devices, and you don't see the nano generation 7s or whatever the case is. So it's all about, taking it with you, being portable, making it your own. So if that's the case, one thing that makes me think about your software for jobs to be done, how is this different than a project management tool? Like here's this team of people, we need to create this thing. So Billy, Tom, Sue, and Dick need to do these things. So here's this project management tool. Talk a little bit about the differences there.
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are a lot of tools out there to do project management and even product road mapping. The difference with our software is your customer's job is front and center through the entire process. So in other tools, you and I could just come up with 50 ideas right now for some product we want to build, and we could just put all those feature ideas in the software. But do we know if those feature ideas are going to create any customer value at all? And the answer, of course, is no. We have no idea whether or not it's going to help customers in any way. In fact, the Zune example is a good example of that. Microsoft clearly fired up a bunch of ideas. They had a roadmap, and they had project managers and product managers all working on it, and they launched a product. They successfully built it and launched it. It was a huge failure in the market, and that's because when they had all their feature ideas, they weren't first evaluating, are they going to deliver any customer value? In that case, were they going to create a mood with music faster and more accurately than anything being done by the iPod? And if the answer is no, then don't build that product, because people don't switch away from their current products unless a new product gets the job done faster and more accurately. And you can see what happened right when the Zune launched around 2006, 2007 timeframe. Another competitor, a startup called Pandora, was growing 90,000 new users per day. Now that is incredibly fast growth, no matter how you measure it. And what that showed was that people wanted to create a mood with music faster and more accurately. So what were the features in Pandora? Well, literally, there were almost none. You entered, Miles Davis, if you were in a relaxing mood, maybe, and push play, and it created a mood based around Miles Davis or the Indigo Girls or whatever music you liked. And their algorithms were really the key feature, because from a user standpoint, all you could do is enter a song and push play. That was it. But what it did very, very fast was it created a mood more accurately for what you were looking for. Are you working out, or romantic mood, or you just want to relax, whatever it was. They did it much faster than having another device where you had to go to a store, find the songs, and then curate your own playlist, and then sync that playlist with your device, and then listen to it. So this is actually what our software helps you do, is measure speed and accuracy relative to your competitors. And if you're not doing something in your roadmap that's going to be faster and more accurate to get the customer's job done than your competitors, you need to rethink what you're doing before you make that investment decision.
Yeah, and Jay, that reminds me of the book by Seth Godin called Tribes. And one of the key takeaways, in my opinion, in that book is don't build something and try to sell it to your tribe. Have your arms wrapped so tight around your tribe that you know what they want and why they want it, and you're interpreting what they want so that you then bring them exactly what they want. So it's all about that that research. And I'm on your website right now, and I love this section, this statement that says personas don't cause people to buy products. And I think so many people get caught up in, avatar and personas, and our avatar is 42 and they have 2 kids, whatever that is. That's fine and dandy, but that's an inanimate object. It's kind of like, knowledge is power. Well, no, knowledge is potential power. You got to put it into action. So talk a little bit about personas don't cause people to buy. Well, what should you do about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And companies often create customer personas, right? Because they want to understand a real human. And you might create 2 personas. Paul is younger and urban, and Kate is older and rural. And the problem with personas is that it can lead you astray as an entrepreneur or a product team member, because in this example, let's say we have Paul and Kate, 2 very different personas with different characteristics, different demographics, different psychographics, different behaviors, etc. Well, could they both struggle to get to destinations on time in the same way? That's a job to be done. We all need to get to destinations on time. We hire Apple and Google Maps to get this job done all the time. So could they both struggle in the same way? And the answer, of course, is yes. And the reason that they struggle is they both make frequent and unfamiliar stops. So in other words, in that case, they both actually have the same unmet customer needs that represent an opportunity for innovation and growth. But if you categorize them in this way and focus on their characteristics and their persona demographics and psychographics, etc., then you're going to miss the fact that they actually represent together a huge customer segment that struggles to get a job done. And that's the key, is really understanding your customer's struggle to get their job done. And this is what the best entrepreneurs in the world do well. As you said, they automatically empathize with customers because they're embracing them. They actually probably were a customer before they started the company. And that's really what the best entrepreneurship is about, is that kind of deep customer empathy with their struggle, regardless of their persona, whether you call them Paul or Kate or Joe or Sarah or whatever. Those characteristics are not the underlying reason they're going to buy your product. They're going to buy your product because you help them get a job done faster and more accurately.
Yeah. And I think to fully flesh out or describe your market, obviously market research, and then, let's see here, how can we get those, responses to make sure we understand our market? And so let's do some surveys, whether it's live or phone or online, all these things. And one thing that I've always seen and heard validated is, hey, take this quick 3-question survey, or take this quick survey, or worse yet, they click the button and they answer a few questions and they look up at the status bar and they've answered, 14 questions and they're 10% of the way done and they go, forget about it. So be careful how you get data, because people get frustrated. But let's say that it is a quick 3-question survey and it's like, oh, hey, do you struggle with this? And wouldn't it be nice to have? And would you buy a product such as? Well, all of a sudden, now here's these businesses that are like, Yahoo, here's market research saying our product idea has legs, so let's go build it. But there's a big difference between people clicking a button on a survey going, sure, and whipping out their credit card and swiping it and buying it. So talk a little bit about really maybe dialing that in really well to make sure that it's viable.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the way that we think about that, everything in business is probabilities and risk. Nothing is 100% certain, and nothing is 0% risk. That would be nice if we could find those things, but unfortunately they don't exist. So if you're on a product team or if you're an entrepreneur and you're investing your company's capital in your product roadmap, which is really the essence of every company, you're taking capital, whether you've raised it from venture funding or you've got it internally, and you're investing that in a product roadmap that you want to turn into revenue and profitability growth. And that's extremely risky. So the way to de-risk that is to use surveys and quantitative analysis to say, is there a higher probability that someone buys what we're building than not? And that's an incredibly critical question for entrepreneurs and CEOs and boards and companies in general. And you're right that surveys, companies do a lot of surveys and they talk to customers all the time. It just depends on what you're surveying. And if you're surveying something about your product without understanding the underlying job, that's actually a big problem because you can get false positives. You can say, hey, do you like this cool widget I built? And someone will say, sure, that's great, fantastic. But you're right, they won't put their credit card down and actually buy the widget. They just gave you a false positive. And that's what you really want to avoid. And when you're asking them about their struggles in their lives, people are stressed out. Today's world is not about super happy customers. It is people are anxious. They got work, kids, finances, their health, meals, travel. They've got to take care of, elderly parents if they have them. People are very stressed out. So what we want to identify first is where are they struggling the most? And then if you can help them overcome that struggle and test even in the concept stage that what you're going to do is help them overcome that struggle, then you have a much higher probability that what you're going to build is going to lead to revenue and profitability growth.
And that's what it's all about. And if you as a marketer or as a project team can understand that and figure that out and use a tool that will help the marketing team and the product development team dial in every step of the way a lot clearer, now you've understood the target audience. You now have a process that is delivering to them what they need, and now the results speak for themselves. So I know your tool, Thrv, has a free version, a 30-day free trial. So what's the best way that listeners, if they're interested in looking at this product roadmap tool, can reach out, connect with you, learn more, and maybe pick up a free trial and see if it would benefit their organization?
Yeah, that's great. They can go to thrv.com. And there are a few things they can check out. We have, of course, they can try the software for free, but even in there's a whole course on how jobs to be done work, which covers everything from defining your customers, defining a job, what actually is a job, how to break down a job into steps and customer needs, how to identify all the customer needs, how to identify which needs are unmet, how to segment customers, sizing, et cetera. So the course takes you through the whole process, which is really key. And obviously what you mentioned at the beginning, it is an actual process. There are steps to go through to ensure that what you're actually building is going to be very successful. So on our site, we have videos, we have the course, we have the software. So there are a lot of resources if people are interested in learning more about how to use the method.
Awesome. Well, Jay, thank you for coming on today. I've got the link to your website right in the show notes, so people can click right on that. And I really appreciate your time, and I really had a fun time talking about the product roadmap.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.